He found a Shivering Orc girl on his doorstep, and the city decided she shouldn't be alive. He almost didn't open the door. That was the thing he would think about later, in the quiet hours when the fire burned low and the town settled into its nighttime size. He almost didn't open it. He'd heard the scratching sound, a faint, dry dragging like a branch pulled across stone, and he had sat very still in his chair with his cold cup of tea and told himself it was the wind. The storm that had been building since midday had finally arrived, and the old city of Thornwall had 100 ways of making noise when the rain came down in sheets. Shutters groaned, gutters overflowed. Loose roof tiles clacked against one another like tired applause. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself that 3 times before he stood up. His name was Edric Voss. 34 years old, with the hands of a man 10 years older, rough-palmed, stained with linseed oil and wood smoke, the knuckles of his right hand permanently swollen from an accident with a mallet the previous winter. He was a joiner by trade, a craftsman who made furniture and repaired structural frames, and occasionally, when money was thin, took on whatever work the Guildhall posted on its board. He was not a remarkable man. He knew that. He had stopped trying to be one. His wife, Maren, had died 2 years ago. A fever in the lungs. 14 days from first cough to last breath, and he had been there for all of them, sleeping in a chair by her bed so that she would not be alone in the dark. The house still smelled like Maren's lavender soap if he stood in the doorway of the bedroom long enough. He wasn't ready to give that up. He wasn't ready for much these days. So when the scratching came again, low and slow and somehow weaker than the last time, as if whatever was making it had spent the last of something, Edric set down his cup, crossed the workshop floor, and opened the front door. The storm fell in at him like a wall. Rain hammered the cobblestones. The lantern above his door swung and guttered, and there, crumpled on the worn stone step where his welcome mat used to be, was a girl. He almost shut the door. Not out of cruelty. Something older than cruelty. Something that lived in the chest and squeezed when things became too real, too close, too much like a problem that could not be solved with wood and joints and the familiar geometry of his craft. He felt that squeeze now, sharp and specific, and his hand tightened on the doorframe. Then the girl moved. Just slightly. One hand scraped against the wet stone, fingers curling without purpose. The way a body moves when the mind has given up, but the body hasn't received the message yet. And in the swinging lantern light, Edric saw the color of her skin, the mottled gray-green that was unmistakably not human, and the small curved tusks at the corners of her lower lip, and the ears that came to a blunted point, and the dark blood that had soaked through her side and mixed with the rainwater to run in pink rivulets across his step. An orc, on his doorstep, in Thornwall. And the worst part was that Thornwall had already rehearsed what it wanted to do with an orc girl like this. He had seen the word they used for it. Not arrest, not question, not even expel, disposal. It had been stamped in block letters on a notice board outside Warden Station 4. The notice wasn't a list of names. It was a list of types. Unregistered non-human. Disposal authorized. Edric had stood there that day with sawdust still on his sleeves and felt something cold settle behind his ribs. Because once a city learns to call a person a category, it becomes very easy for it to decide that the category shouldn't be alive. Thornwall had passed the registry edict 18 months ago. Paper law with iron consequences. All non-humans had to register with the civil guard, names and addresses recorded like inventory. Officially, it was public safety. Unofficially, it was permission, written in ink, for the city to decide who belonged and who didn't. That city. Edric Voss stood in the doorway of his home and workshop for 5 full seconds. He counted them, then he bent down, got his arms under the girl's shoulders, and dragged her inside. She was lighter than he expected. He had expected muscle. Orcs were built for it, everyone said so. But she was slight, narrow through the shoulders. The kind of thin that comes from not eating enough for long enough that the body begins to borrow from itself. He laid her on the workshop floor and checked the wound first. A long, ugly slash across her left side, below the ribs. The deliberate geometry of an intentional blade. Not a fall, not an accident. Someone had cut this girl. He found himself cataloging details the way he assessed a piece of wood. Age, young, maybe 17 or 18. Hair, dark brown, cropped short, matted with rain and mud. Clothing, rough spun and soaked. Around her neck, a cord with a small carved disc of dark wood, worn smooth by handling, and on the inside of her left forearm, burned old into her skin, a scar in the shape of a closed fist. He knew that mark. He'd seen it drawn in charcoal on a handbill once, tucked under a stone on the guild steps, a fist, closed, final. Tongue false, the handbill had said, as if lying were a sickness you could brand into a body. Return for civic reward. No questions, no hearing. He had told himself it was rumor, exaggeration, fear doing what fear always did. Now the same symbol sat burned into the inside of her arm, old scar tissue shining wet under lantern light, and it didn't feel like rumor anymore. He boiled water, found the linen strips he kept for workshop injuries, cleaned the wound as carefully as he could. The girl made a sound when he pressed the cloth to her side, and her eyes opened. They were amber, a pale, warm amber that caught the lantern light and held it. Her hand moved first. Fast, too fast for someone half dead on a floor. He felt her fingers clamp around his wrist, not strong like a fighter, but desperate like a drowning person. His pulse jumped. Then she pulled him lower, as if the words needed to land where no one outside could hear. "No healer," she rasped. "Promise." Edric held still until her grip loosened on its own. "I hear you," he said quietly. "No healer?" She looked at him. He looked back. "You're in my workshop," he said, because he could not think of anything better. "I'm cleaning your wound. I'm not going to hurt you." She said nothing. Her eyes tracked him with an intensity disproportionate to her situation. She was lying on his floor, barely able to lift a hand, and still she was looking at him like she was trying to determine exactly how dangerous he was. He found himself oddly respecting that. "Can you understand me?" he asked. "Yes." Her voice was rough and low, accented in a way he couldn't place. Something softer than the northern orc settlements he'd heard traders describe. Something that had spent time in human cities. "I understand you fine." "No healer," she said again when he raised the question. "If you call a healer, they'll report where I am. Then they come. You don't want them coming to your house." A slow breath. "I'm sorry I'm here. I didn't choose your step. I just fell." He tied off the bandage and sat back on his heels. Every practical instinct he had, the same instincts that had helped him survive 2 years of grief by keeping his head down and his workshop door closed, told him to finish bandaging her up, give her whatever coin he had in his coat pocket, and send her on her way with genuine good wishes. He went to the kitchen instead and put a pot of soup on the fire. Her name was Skara. She told him that an hour later, when the soup was done and he'd helped her sit up against the workbench. She said it like she was testing whether the word would cost her something. "Edric," he said in return, She repeated it carefully. Edric. A pause. Human name? Very, he agreed. He sat on his stool across from her, close enough to catch her if she slid sideways again, but not so close she'd feel hemmed in. Are you going to tell me who cut you? She looked into her soup bowl. The steam rose around her face. Clansman, she said at last. Former clan. I was cast out 3 weeks ago. He waited. I spoke at a trial, she said, a truth speaking. My chieftain's brother had taken something that didn't belong to him. A life. He arranged it to look like an accident. The clan healer's son who had spoken against the chieftain's trade agreements. I was there. I saw it. I spoke at the truth circle. She paused. The chieftain decided my words were a lie to embarrass his family. He cast me out and named me tongue false. She swallowed, and for the first time her gaze broke away. There's a part I haven't said, she added, voice quieter. Not because I'm hiding it, because saying it out loud makes it real, and if it's real, it becomes something they can use. Later, Edric said, when we're not sitting in a room that has windows. The way she looked at him after that, the faint surprise of being understood without needing to explain, was something he'd remember for a long time. The cut on your side, he said. The enforcer found me 4 streets from here. I ran. A flicker of something crossed her face. Not quite pride, not quite shame. I'm faster than I look. Clearly, he said, or you wouldn't be on my floor. He looked at the rain-blurred window. This enforcer, how close behind you? He is patient, she said. He will look. Her amber eyes were direct and unblinking. You should know this. What you do now decides what comes to your door next. He nodded slowly. I appreciate the warning. It is not a warning only, she said. It is honor. You have fed me and bound my wound, and you did not throw me back into the rain. There are laws among my people about this. She hesitated. He could see it cost her. Hearth debt. When a mortal shelters one of us who has been cast out and hunted by clan law, a debt forms. It is not a courtesy. It is a binding. I owe you absolute loyalty and truth for as long as the debt stands. And if you don't repay it, disgrace that no second casting out can match, she said quietly. Loss of name. A curse that follows through the spirit threads. Among my people, it is considered worse than death. She looked at her hands. I want you to know the debt is real. I'm not lying to secure shelter. I'm telling you because you have the right to know what your kindness has cost you and what it has bound me to. Edric Voss sat on his stool for a long time. Outside, Thornwall muttered and dripped in the dark. The fire in his kitchen hearth made small sounds. His workshop smelled of sawdust and linseed oil and, faintly, the lavender soap from the bedroom upstairs. There's a storeroom at the back, he said at last. It's warm enough. I'll put a pallet in it. He stood, picked up her bowl, and headed for the kitchen. In the morning, we'll decide what to do about the rest of it. He did not sleep well. He lay in the room that still smelled faintly of lavender and stared at the ceiling. He thought about Maren, how she would have opened the door faster, already calling for hot water and clean cloth. Full of a quick, instinctive generosity that he had always admired from a slight remove, as if it were a skill he had not yet learned. He thought about the amber eyes and the old burn scar in the shape of a closed fist. He thought about the word tongue false and what it meant to call someone a liar in front of their entire world and then send a blade after them to make the accusation permanent. He got up at dawn and made porridge. Skara was already awake when he knocked and opened the storeroom door. Sitting cross-legged on the pallet, back straight despite everything, turning the small wooden disc on its cord through her fingers. In the grey morning light, she looked younger and older at the same time. "How's the side?" he asked. "Stiff. Not infected. Orc blood runs hot." She picked up the bowl. Then, "I should move on today. I don't want to bring more trouble to your house." "You need a healer," he said. "Not a guild healer. There's a woman on Silt Street, retired, not registered with the guild. She patches people quietly. No reports." He leaned against the door frame. "There are a few things I need to do in town today anyway. You can come with me or stay here. But if you stay here, sir, stay away from the windows." A long pause. "Then, I'll come." Thornwall in the morning after a storm was a city doing its best to look unbothered. The gutters ran brown and fast. Market vendors were out early, resetting their stalls, wringing out their awning cloths. The cobblestones were dark and slick, reflecting the pale sky. Edric walked with Skara at a pace he chose carefully, not hurrying, because hurrying drew eyes. She wore a cloak from his storeroom trunk, dark grey and too large for her, but it covered the bandage and the points of her ears when she pulled the hood up. "Don't look at the ground," he said quietly. "I wasn't. You were about to, I can tell. In this city, looking at the ground reads as guilt or fear. Both make people look harder." 2 streets later, he felt it. The shift that told you someone had decided to match your pace. Not running, not obvious, just there. He angled them into a narrow lane of hanging laundry, through a candle shop he knew, and out the side door into a courtyard. They stepped back onto the next street. 2 dock rat boys passed the shop window, eyes searching for something that wasn't there anymore. Skara exhaled once, slow. "You noticed," she said. "I notice," Edric replied. "That's how I stay alive in this city." 3 streets further on, they passed a posted notice from the warden's office. Reminder. Per the registry edict, all non-human persons must be registered with the civil guard. Unregistered non-human persons are in breach of civic law. Citizens who knowingly harbor unregistered non-human persons may be subject to fine or civic sanction. Edric did not slow down. Skara had read it too. He could tell by the quality of her silence. "How old is the edict?" she asked. 18 months. It came after a merchant was robbed by 2 men who happened to be from the Northern Orc settlements. The warden used it to pass the registry. He called it a public safety measure. He paused. The 2 men were caught and sentenced within a month. The registry is still in place. Skara said nothing to that. What was there to say? Silt Street was narrow and damp and smelled of old wood and river clay. The woman Edric was looking for lived at the end, a retired midwife named Sarah Dunt, 60 and compact, with close cropped grey hair and the deeply observant eyes of someone who had spent decades reading people in moments of crisis. She looked at Edric. She looked at Skara. She stepped back and opened the door wider. "Workshop injury," she said, as if this were entirely routine. "Blade wound," Edric said. "Left side." "Clean cut. I dressed it last night." "Come in then." Sarah stitched the deepest part of the wound while Skara sat very still and looked at the wall. She packed clean dressings and a pot of wound salve and handed them to Edric with a look that meant, "We'll settle this later." At the door, she said quietly, "Be careful, Voss. The warden's men were on this street yesterday." A pause. "If they learn I stitched her, they'll take what's left of my license, just to make a point." She shrugged like a woman too old to be impressed by fear. "I did it anyway, so don't waste what I just risked." He nodded once, and they walked. At the guild hall, a young clerk named Ferris took in Skara with a visible start. The ears, the skin, the tusks, then focused very deliberately on the paperwork for Edric's cabinet delivery. "You're a helper," she registered, Ferris asked, without looking up. "She's my assistant," Edric said. Flat and practical. "She helps me with deliveries." Ferris looked up then. He was 22 or so, with the mildly anxious expression of someone who was aware of the rules and also aware that following them rigidly wasn't always the same as doing the right thing, and who had not yet decided which to prioritize. He looked at Skara. She looked back with a careful, neutral expression of someone who had made that calculation many times. "Right," Ferris said. He stamped the delivery. "Have a good morning." They didn't make it to the corner before they were stopped. The Hendricks steward, clean coat, clean hands, waited under the eaves with a look trying to be polite and failing. The commission was being reconsidered. Hendricks didn't want trouble. There were rumors, inspectors on Edric Street, and Hendricks was a council donor. The steward offered half payment for materials. It was not fair. It was what people offered when they wanted to buy their way out of conscience. Edric took the purse anyway, because pride didn't pay rent. The steward walked away with relief in his shoulders, as if he'd just avoided being touched by something contagious. Skara said nothing until they were alone. Then, quietly, "That cost you." Edric's fingers closed around the purse until the leather creaked. "Yes," he said. "It did." On the way back at the market, a woman named Bren Ashval, heavy-set, 50s, efficient hands, held up a jar as they drew level. "Winter beet preserves. Last of the season. 2 for the price of 1. She glanced at Skara as if she'd been looking at her the whole time. "Your young friend looks like someone who could use a good meal." Edric reached for his coin. As Bren passed the jars, her hand touched Skara's wrist for just a moment. Not accidental, not exactly deliberate. A small acknowledgement. A tiny, quiet declaration. "You take care of yourself," Bren said. To Skara. Specifically. After a silence, Skara said, "She knew what I was." Of course she did. And she said nothing. Helped instead. "Some people do," Edric said. "It's not as rare as the loudest people make it seem. It's just quieter. The loud ones are always louder." Before they turned onto his street, they found 3 men standing in the road. Not blocking it exactly. Occupying it, the way men stood when they wanted space to mean something. 2 were broad and plain-faced. The third wore a brass pin from the civic inspectors. "Voss?" the thin man said. Not a question. "Harwick," Edric replied. "Morning." Harwick's eyes moved to Skara. "Registry papers." "She's in process," Edric said. "The edict requires registration upon residency of more than 3 days. She's been in Thornwall since yesterday." A pause. Harwick pulled out his notebook, took down Edric's address with the careful penmanship of a man who understood paperwork was leverage, and stepped aside with a look that said, "I'm noting this." Inside, door latched, Skara said, "How long until the 3 days are a problem?" "They're already a problem." "Registration means a record. A record is a map." He sat on his work stool. "But I was in civic violation the moment I let you through the door, so the day after tomorrow doesn't change much that's fundamental." She gave him that careful, measuring look. "You're not afraid." "I'm afraid," he said. "I'm just not letting it make the decision." That evening they ate winter beet preserves and bread, and Edric told her about Maren. He hadn't planned to. It came out slowly, the way things came out when the fire was warm and the dark outside was pressing, and the person across from you was quiet, in a way that made silence feel like invitation rather than absence. He told her about the workshop they'd run together for 6 years. Maren keeping the books, drawing the plans, while he cut and fit and assembled. He told her about the lavender soap, about the 14 days. Skara listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "Among my people, when someone cannot grieve properly, they say the grief becomes wood, heavy and hard and shaped wrong. Not because grief is bad, but because grief without air becomes something that doesn't release. And what do you do about it? You speak it to fire. The words go into the flame, and the flame sends them where they need to go." She paused. "I think it is really just giving your pain permission to leave." He didn't do it that night. But later, when she was in the storeroom and the fire was burning down to coals, he sat in front of it and said, "Maren, I miss you every day, and I think I'm going to be all right." He felt faintly ridiculous, and then he felt something loosen in his chest that had been wood hard for 2 years. In the morning, he felt slightly lighter. He didn't mention it to Skara, but she looked at him over breakfast with her amber eyes, and something in them said she understood anyway. By the second day, the neighbors had started watching. The woman across the street, Hallis Brune, stood at her window at unexpected hours with a stillness that was less leisure and more surveillance. The family 2 doors down had stopped leaving their front door open during the day. On the morning of the second day, Edric found 3 letters scratched into his step. G-A-R. An old Thornwall word meaning burden bringer. Someone who carried something that would weigh down the people around them. He swept them away with his boot. That afternoon, his next-door neighbor, Pessel Cord, a tinsmith, practical and risk-averse in the way of people who had built small, stable lives and intended to keep them, stopped him at the fence. "There's talk of Dunbar's men being interested in this street," Pessel said, not quite meeting his eyes. "Captain Dunbar, you know who he is." Edric knew. Captain Aldous Dunbar had turned Thornwall's civic order from a minor patrol function into something considerably more organized, better funded, and substantially more eager. Not technically affiliated with the registry edict, but enforcing it with a personal enthusiasm the warden's office found useful to look away from. "The kind of interest that comes with 6 men and a warrant," Pessel said. "I'm telling you this because I've known you since before Maren. Not telling you what to do, just telling you." "Thank you, Pessel." Inside, Edric told Skara. She received it with the contained stillness she used for bad news. "The human authority and the clan enforcer," she said. 2 pressures at once. "Is the enforcer still out there?" "He doesn't leave. Brengar Tusk, the chieftain's chosen hand. He's patient. He'll wait until the human authorities flush me out into the open, and then he'll be there. Or he'll wait until I'm taken in and come for me in their custody, which would embarrass your city, and he knows it. He sounds patient." "He's the most patient person I've ever met," she said, with the flat certainty of personal experience. "Which is what makes him frightening." Edric looked out the window at the ordinary Thornwall evening. The lamplighter doing his rounds, 2 boys racing on the corner, but he felt the pressure the way a piece of wood communicated its inner stresses before showing them. A subtle wrongness in grain and weight that warned you before the crack appeared. "I need to think," he said. "So do I," Skara agreed. They thought through dinner and in silence while the lamps burned. And at some point in the night, Edric went up to the bedroom and opened the cedar chest at the foot of the bed, the one that still held some of Maren's things, and took out a small item wrapped in cloth. He'd made it for Maren the first winter of their marriage. A joiner's puzzle box. A simple cube of inlaid wood that looked sealed but opened, if you knew the sequence of slides and turns, to reveal a small hollow inside. He'd hidden a note for her when he gave it, and she'd laughed at the look on his face when she solved it in 20 minutes. He had not opened the box since she died. In the morning, he showed it to Skara. She turned it in her hands carefully. "It's beautiful," she said, with the directness of someone who did not offer compliments lightly. "It was my wife's. I made it for her." He watched her hands on the wood. "I want to give it to you, not as payment, not as anything transactional, because you've been honest with me every time honesty cost you something, and because you should have a thing of worth that belongs only to you." Skara went very still. Then she reached into her trouser pocket and brought out a small carved token he hadn't seen before. Dark green stone, roughly thumb-shaped, incised with lines he didn't recognize. "I made this 3 nights ago, in your storeroom, with a chisel I borrowed from your rack. The pattern is the hearth mark of my mother's family, before the clan." She held it out. "It means, I see your fire as my fire. I will not lie to you. I will not leave you unguarded while I have breath." He took it. It was warm from her pocket. He could feel the incised lines under his fingertips. "I don't have a ritual gesture," he said. "You already made one," she said. "You opened the door." He put the token in his coat pocket next to his heart and showed her the sequence of slides and turns that opened the puzzle box. She solved it in 12 minutes. He didn't say anything about the 20. The stone came through the window on the 3rd night. It hit the workbench and rolled into the tool rack, scattering chisels with a tremendous clatter. Edric was on his feet before the sound finished. Skara was at the storeroom door in the same breath, the lamp behind her throwing her shadow long. He picked up the stone, untied the parchment wrapped around it, read it. "You have 3 days to put the creature out. After that, we put it out for you." No signature. He looked at the words for a moment, then at Skara. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes." She was looking at the broken window, glass on the bench, glass on the floor, the cold air coming in. "This will escalate." It wasn't fear in her voice. It was the calm of someone who had already been through several rounds of escalation and knew the shape of it. "Edric," she looked at him, "you are not required to stay in this fight. The hearth debt is mine. The honor is mine. If you step back, I'm not stepping back. I would not hold it against you." "Skara," he said her name with a finality that stopped her. "I'm not stepping back." He looked at the note again. The anonymous threat of men who wrapped their intentions in unsigned parchment because they were afraid to put their names on their convictions. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow I'm going to do something I should have done 2 days ago." He spent an hour sweeping glass and boarding the window, then sat in his chair with the cold and thought about Maren, and about patience, and about the kind of man he had been slowly, quietly, failing to be for 2 years. Next morning, before the guild hall had opened its doors, Pestle Cord appeared at the fence with a bundle of thin boards and a tin of nails, eyes fixed anywhere but Edric's face. "Your window," he muttered. "Storm season, always good to have spares." "Pestle, I'm not making a speech." Pestle snapped quietly, as if speeches were dangerous. "I'm giving you wood. Wood is neutral." A beat, then softer. "And if someone asks, you bought it." He left before Edric could answer. Edric stood with his hands on the nails, feeling something that was not relief, but was close to it. And that was exactly when the knock came. In the morning, he went to find Ferris at the bread stall on Middle Row. He fell into step beside the young clerk and said quietly, "I need to send a letter north to the Orc matron circle at the Elder Hall in Greyvane. I need it to arrive within 4 days, and I need it not to pass through the Thornwall civil post. I know you sometimes carry private correspondence for your uncle's shipping firm." Ferris ate his bread in silence. They walked half a block. "My uncle's courier goes to Greyvane on 6th day," Ferris said finally. "That's tomorrow." "Good. What's in the letter?" "The truth," Edric said. "Just the truth." Ferris nodded slowly. The look in his eyes was the look of someone who had been waiting and had now decided. "Give me the letter by tonight," he said. Edric wrote it that afternoon, carefully, in the plain, functional prose he used for contracts and estimates. He wrote what Skara had told him. The truth speaking, the clan trial, the name of the chieftain's brother, the name of the healer's son who had died. He wrote the casting out, the enforcer, the wound, the shelter. He wrote the name Brengar Tusk and the nature of the hearth dead. Then he wrote, "I'm a human craftsman of no particular standing in my city. I am writing to you because a young woman told me the truth when it cost her something to do so, and I believe her, and I think that belief is enough of a foundation to stand on. She is called Skara, and she is owed justice. I asked for the Elder Circle's witness. He gave it to Ferris at dusk, sealed, and said nothing more about it. That same evening, someone came to the workshop door. Not a stone, a knock, 3 polite, even strokes, in a pattern that sounded more deliberate than Harwick or dock workers. Edric opened the door. The orc, standing on the step, was tall and broad, but not aggressively so. He wore city clothes, plain and dark. His face was composed to absolute neutrality, the way trained stone is composed to absolute smoothness. He had eyes the color of pewter, and they were the most patient eyes Edric had ever looked into. "Edric Voss," the man said. Not a question. "Yes. My name is Brengar Tusk. I believe you have something that belongs to my chieftain. I would like to discuss a peaceful resolution." The way he said peaceful made the word feel like the beginning of a countdown. "She doesn't belong to anyone," Edric said. "That is one interpretation," Bren said pleasantly. "The clan law has another." "Then the clan law is wrong." Bren looked at him with those pewter eyes for a long, still moment. "You are brave," he said. Not admiringly, simply as an observation. "Oh, you don't know what you're dealing with." "Probably both," Edric said. "Come back when you have papers from the Elder Circle. Until then, you have no standing in this city, and I have every right to close this door." He closed the door. He stood with his back to it, breathing. His heart was doing something loud and structural. From the storeroom, "Edric, I know." That was Bren. "I know that too." He peeled himself off the door and went to the kitchen. His hands, he noticed, were completely steady. "The letter's on its way to Greyvane. 4 days if the courier is good." He put the kettle on. "We need to stay intact for 4 days." The next 2 days were the worst. Harwick came on the morning of the 4th day with a formal notice. Not the 6 men with a warrant, not yet, but a document citing the registry violation and giving Edric a formal hearing date 2 days from now. Precisely written and entirely legal, and meant to convey that the walls were closing in measured, orderly increments. Bren came back twice. Both times Edric met him at the door without opening it. Bren spoke through the wood in a tone of absolute, patient reasonableness that was somehow more threatening than shouting. He never raised his voice. He simply described the ways the clan law applied and what a peaceful alternative might look like. one that involved Skara returning with him voluntarily, in which case the chieftain was prepared to show mercy. Skara, listening from the storeroom. He's lying. There is no mercy on offer. My chieftain wants me silent permanently. I know, Edric said. You believe me? Without question. She was quiet for a moment. I'm not used to that, she said. Being believed without needing to prove it first. Get used to it, he said. It's the normal baseline, and you deserve it. She looked at him for a long time with those amber eyes, and something in her face changed, a softening, and under the softening, a kind of grief for all the times the baseline had not been met. He did not comment on it. He just let her feel it. Then, on the 5th night, 2 things happened at once. The first, a group of 7 men appeared at the end of Edric Street around the 9th bell, too organized to be casual, carrying lamps, and at least 2 of them carrying something heavier. Captain Dunbar's men, or men acting on Dunbar's interest. Skara's voice came from behind him, low. If the Elder Circle comes, she said, it isn't a rescue, it's judgment. They can annul an exile, or seal it forever. They can decide I was right to speak, or decide the clan's stability matters more than a healer's son. Elder law isn't kind, it's clean. She swallowed. Sometimes clean means blood. Edric felt his throat tighten. So even if they come, we might still lose, Skara agreed, eyes fixed on the street like she could already see the shape of the night. Outside, the first organized footsteps reached the mouth of the street. And then a large traveling carriage rolled in from the north gate, drawn by 2 gray horses, moving with the unhurried confidence of something that knew it had right of way. It stopped in the middle of Edric Street, directly between the men and his door. The carriage door opened. The woman who descended was old. Not frail old, but authoritative old, the kind of old that had been building for decades and was now complete. She was an orc, broad-shouldered and deliberate, wearing deep blue robes with a sash of braided gray and green that Skara made a sharp sound at seeing. Her hair was white and elaborate. Her face was a map of considered lines, each one earned. Bren Gartusk materialized from the shadows near the lamppost. He looked at the woman, and even from the window Edric could see him process something. The pewter eyes adjusted. The composed face recalibrated with the speed of a man very practiced at not showing surprise, but showing it slightly anyway. Matron Vel, Bren said, and for the first time his voice had edges. Bren Gartusk, said the old woman. Her voice carried the easy authority of someone who had been speaking in official capacities for 40 years and expected to be heard. I received a letter. At the other end of the street, Dunbar's men had slowed. Not stopped, but slowed. The carriage, the robes, the attendants were not what they had come for. Uncertainty makes people slow. The letter is the business of the clan, Bren said, recovering. The letter is the business of the Elder Circle, Matron Vel said, which supersedes the chieftain's justice in cases of wrongful exile. She turned from Bren with the completeness of someone closing a door, faced the workshop, and raised her voice. Edric Voss, I understand you are the shelter. He opened the workshop door. He walked out onto his step. Behind him, after a moment, came Skara. Matron Vel looked at her for a long time. Something passed across the old orc's face that was complex. Recognition, grief, something that might have been anger, and underneath it all, the particular sorrow of someone who had arrived as quickly as they could, and was not sure quickly was enough. Skara, daughter of the Grey Morn, she said. I have read the testimony you gave at the Truth Circle. I have read it against the testimony of 4 other witnesses whom your chieftain believed he had silenced. A pause. He was incorrect in that belief. Skara had gone very still. Edric felt it beside him, the particular stillness of someone who had stopped breathing because they were afraid to exhale in case the moment broke. The exile was wrongful, Matron Vel continued in the cadence of formal declaration. The tongue-false claim was a lie to protect the guilty. The sentence against you is annulled by Elder Circle authority, effective from this moment. And the man, Haldith Gar-Iron, your chieftain's brother, is now charged under clan law for the murder of Yavar the Healer's son. Your words have been witnessed and will be written. At the street's end, Dunbar's men had stopped entirely. One of them had taken a step back. Brengar Tusk stood very still. Then he bowed his head, a short, formal bow, the bow of a man who served the law and who, faced with a higher expression of the law, was compelled to recognize it. It was, Edric thought, the most chilling thing Bren had done in any of their encounters, because it meant the threat was over, which also meant the threat had been entirely real. Skara, Matron Vel said more quietly now. Come here. Skara walked across the street. She moved like someone walking towards something she had given up on having. The old woman looked at her, and then, with a brevity that was more eloquent than ceremony, put her hand against the side of Skara's face, the way a grandmother does, and said something in Orcish that was too quiet to carry. Skara's face broke. Not into crying, exactly, though her eyes filled. It broke into the expression of someone whose armor had been on so long they'd forgotten what it felt like to be without it, and who had just been given permission to remember. A kind of relief so profound it was almost painful to witness. Captain Dunbar's men left. Matron Vel requested a public witnessing, the price required by elder law when a wrongful exile was annulled. A declaration in the city where the exiled had sheltered, witnessed by at least 10 adults of good standing, so the annulment could not later be disputed. The witnessing was held in the market square on a clear morning. More than 10 adults were present. Brenash Vale was there, standing solid in her apron. Young Ferris was there, in his good coat. Sarah Dunt was there, small and upright. Pacel Cord was there. This surprised Edric and moved him more than he expected, standing near the back with his hat in his hands. And Hallis Brune, from across the street. He had not expected that. She caught his eye and gave him a small, tight nod that contained about 7 different emotions, none of them without some trace of conscience. Matron Vel spoke the annulment in 2 languages. Skara stood beside her, steady and straight, her hood down in the open air. The market went on around them, not pausing entirely, but quieting slightly, the way markets do when something is happening that everyone knows matters. At the end, Matron Vel said, "The shelter giver is to be recognized." She looked at Edric. He was not prepared for that, and he knew he looked unprepared, and he didn't much care. He was a joiner who repaired frames and had opened a door in a storm. "Edric Voss," Matron Vel said. "By the law of Hearth Debt and by the right of the Elder Circle, I declare your shelter as the act of a just person. This city will note it." She paused, and the slight dryness in her tone suggested she was aware of the irony of declaring this in a city whose official stance had been the opposite. "And so will we." He nodded, the way he nodded at everything when he didn't know what to say. It seemed to be accepted. That night, over food, Skara told him the hearth debt would never fully discharge. Not in the way that meant burden, but in the way some things, once true, stay true. "I want to stay in Thornwall," she said. "For a while. Not forever. I need to go back eventually. Speak at the clan trial in person." She traced the corner of the workbench. But I'd like to stay here first. Work. Learn things. If that's acceptable. I could use a shop assistant, he said. Someone who can keep books. I'm good at math, she said. I know. I watched you do the accounts in your head at the lamp stall. She nodded slowly. Then we have a deal. They shook hands over it. She performed the gesture with a seriousness that made him want to smile and not want to undercut it with smiling, both at once. Then she got the ledger he'd been ignoring for 3 months and opened it on the bench. This is catastrophic, she said. I know. Your invoicing system makes no sense. I know that too. I'm going to fix this. Please, he said, with genuine feeling. The town of Thornwall did not change overnight. That would have been a more satisfying story. The kind where one act of justice reshapes the landscape entirely. But towns, like wood, have grain. They bend where their grain allows and resist where it doesn't, and the shaping of them is slow work, done with patience, with persistent small pressure, with a willingness to do the same thing correctly many times before the result becomes visible. Harwick stopped walking past Edric's workshop with his notebook out. The registry edict would remain on the books for another 3 years before a newly elected council repealed it, in part because of a petition Bren Asheville circulated from her stall, in part because Ferris had started writing careful letters to the council that several administrators found inconveniently impossible to ignore. Pacel Cord knocked on Edric's door in early spring and asked to meet Skara properly. Skara considered this and said, "The waiting man chose," which was the best summary available. Hallis Brunner left a loaf of bread on Edric's step one morning. Dark grain, no note. Skara said, "Some apologies don't have words. They just have bread," and went back to the ledger. Spring came to Thornwall tentatively, then all at once. The morning smelled of rain on warm earth, which was a different smell than rain on cold stone and better. He made a chair, a working chair, solid and low-backed, from ash wood with carved details at the joints. He built it over 2 weeks in the evenings. When it was done, he moved it behind the desk where Skara kept the ledger. She came in the next morning, saw it, and stood still. "That's mine," she said. Not a question. "That's yours," he confirmed. "The other one was too high for you. You were compensating by holding your shoulders wrong." She sat in it, adjusted her posture, said nothing for a moment. Then, "This is the most comfortable chair I've ever sat in." "It should be," he said. "I measured." She laughed, less careful than before, less like something that needed to be rationed. A younger sound than most of her sounds. He kept planing the frame piece and said nothing, which was the correct thing to do. 3 months after the night of the storm, a package arrived from the Elder Circle in Grey Vane. Inside, a letter from Matron Vell confirming that the trial of Huldeth Gar Ein had concluded with a verdict of guilt. The first time in 40 years the Elder Circle had overturned a chieftain's exile and then prosecuted the chieftain's family on the same testimony. The letter noted, with a brevity that carried weight, that Skara's testimony had been the pivot point. Also in the package, a small disc of grey stone carved in a pattern Edric recognized as a variant of the hearthmark on the token Skara had made for him. Not identical, but related. Matron Vell's note read, "For the shelter, the hearthmark of the Elder Circle, so that any of our people who see it will know that your fire is safe." "She's saying your home is protected," Skara said quietly. "Any orc who comes to your door and sees that mark, they'll know you're a place of safe harbor. They don't give these lightly." Edric turned the disc over in his calloused, oil-stained hands. A small grey stone with a carved mark. A door, opened in the dark, in a storm. The weight of both those things pressed against each other in his chest, the smallness of the action and the size of what it had made. He went to the front door and hung the disc on the nail beside the frame where his welcome mat used to be. The nail he had never removed after the mat rotted. The nail he'd always meant to do something with. He did something with it now. Late that summer, Skara went north for the testimony. She was gone for 6 weeks. She came back on a Tuesday in the late summer, arriving at the door in the early evening with a pack on her back and a hood down and a look on her face of someone who had come through something and was standing on the other side of it. She had a new cut, small, on her cheekbone. She'd tell him about it later. One of the chieftain's supporters had tried something outside the Elder Hall, and she had handled it. The words she used for handled it being somewhat more decisive than handled implied. She stood in the doorway. He was at the workbench. "The testimony went well," she said. "I know," he said. "Matron Vell sent word last week." "I could have sent word." "You could have," he agreed, "but you were busy handling things." He looked up from the box he had been making. "Are you all right?" She met his eyes. That amber gaze, direct and careful and increasingly, lately, at rest. "Yes," she said. "I am." She came inside, dropped her pack, and went directly to the desk where the ledger sat. She opened it to the last entry he'd made and made a sound that was deeply unimpressed. "I tried," he said. "It's very bad." "I know." She sat down in her ashwood chair, because it was her chair now, unreservedly, and began correcting his entries with the brisk efficiency of someone resuming a task that had never really stopped. The pen scratched. The late summer light lay across the bench and the walls in the small grey disc hanging by the door. The smell of sawdust and linseed oil. The warmth of the hearth burning low against the evening chill. He went back to his box. They worked in comfortable silence, the way you work when you've stopped needing to announce your presence to each other. When the presence is simply assumed and the work simply continues and the day does what days do. He would think later that there had been no single moment when the grief became something else. No clean divide. It was like a piece of wood that has been oiled and worked and oiled again. At some point, you look at it, and it is no longer raw. You cannot say which application of oil made the difference, only that the work was done honestly and over time. He still thought about Maren. He had come to understand grief not as a wound that healed and left no trace, but as a room in the house that stays furnished. You just stopped living in it exclusively. There were other rooms now. The room of Bren Ashvale's bread and Farris's letters and Pacel Cord's difficult, eventual courage. The room of a grey stone disc on a nail by the door and a ledger in order and an ash wood chair that fit correctly and a small carved token in his coat pocket. These were not replacements. They were additions. Life insisting on itself. He thought Maren would have approved. She would have liked Skara very much, would have seen immediately what was real in a person. She would have made soup and been insufferably right about all of it from the start. Skara did not stay in Thornwall forever. She had said she wouldn't. She had a world to move through, a clan place to return to or remake. A future to build in the space between two cultures that had always told her she could only belong to one. She was, she had said once to Edric, a person of two hearths. That was not the same as a person without a hearth. It was harder, and it was also bigger. She left in the autumn of the following year, at dawn. She left well, with documents, with connections to the Elder Circle, with a letter of standing from a master joiner noting her exceptional skills. She left with the puzzle box, inside which she had placed something he hadn't opened to discover. He walked with her to the north gate of the city, which was as far as he could take her, and there they stood for a moment in the autumn morning. Cold stone and distant wood smoke and the first frost on the gate posts. "The hearth debt," she said. "Still standing," he said. "Not a problem." "Not a debt," she corrected him. "That's what I'm trying to say. It was a debt, now it's a bond. Those are different things. A debt implies something owed. What's between us isn't owed. It just is." He understood that. "Then it just is," he said. She put her hand on his arm, briefly, the orc gesture of acknowledged kinship, meaning roughly, "I see you clearly, and I hold you in regard." He put his hand over hers for a moment, which was not exactly equivalent, but was honest. Then she turned and walked through the gate. He watched until she became the size of a detail, and then until she was gone. He walked home through Thornwall in the early morning, past the market stalls setting up, past the bread baker and the frost-tipped trees and the green-tusk herbalist's shop on Pepper Lane, where a light was already burning. Down Joiner's Row, which smelled of sawdust in the cold air. He let himself into the workshop. The ledger was on the desk. The ashwood chair was behind it, waiting. The grey stone disc hung by the door, the hearthmark of two worlds, the sign of a fire that was open. He put the kettle on. He stood at the workbench and picked up a piece of ashwood he'd been meaning to start. A chair back, another working chair, because the workshop could use a second one. Because an ashwood chair was a thing he knew how to make correctly now, having made one before. He began to plane it. The shavings curled and fell. The morning moved through the windows. The workshop smelled of itself. He was a man at work, in a room with an open fire. He was not a remarkable man. He knew that. And today, in the gold light of an autumn morning, with his hands on honest wood and the memory of amber eyes, and the distant sound of the city going about its complicated life, he found that he was glad about it. Glad to be the particular, specific, unremarkable man who had stood in a doorway in a storm and opened the door. Because the remarkable things, it turned out, had grown from that. If you've made it this far, thank you. Genuinely. You stayed with Edric and Skara through the storm and the stone and the slow, unglamorous work of being decent in a world that makes it inconvenient. I think we all know someone like Edric. Someone who keeps the door closed for a long time, not out of cruelty, but out of exhaustion and grief and the reasonable fear of more loss. And I think we've all had the moment, whether we took it or didn't, where something knocked on the door and we had to decide who we were going to be. Edric opened the door. The rest is just what that decision grew into. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment and tell me, what does the word hearth mean to you? That's all, just hearth. It'll tell me whether this kind of storytelling is worth doing more of. If you've been here for a while and haven't subscribed yet, this is the nudge. Hit subscribe and the bell. Until then, keep the fire open.